What if the reason you feel empty is not because you are lazy, unmotivated, or broken? What if the reason you keep overthinking, the reason you struggle to trust people, the reason you feel emotionally exhausted, and the reason happiness never seems to last is something much deeper, something hidden, something your mind learned years ago, something that silently influences your thoughts, your relationship, your confidence, and your future? Psychologists call it trauma. And before you think, I have not been through anything traumatic, stay with me because trauma is not always what people imagine. It is not always abuse, violence, or major life tragedy. Sometimes trauma is growing up feeling unseen. Sometimes trauma is constantly being criticized. Sometimes trauma is emotional neglect. Or sometimes trauma is never feeling safe enough to be yourself. And years later, those experiences can continue controlling your life without you realizing it. Today, you'll discover 7 hidden trauma signs that psychology experts often see in adults, and one of them may explain something you have been struggling with for years. Let's begin. What trauma really is. Most people misunderstand trauma. They think trauma is the event, but psychology suggests something more important. Trauma is often the emotional impact that remains after the event. Two people can experience the same situation. One recovers quickly, the other struggles for years. Why? Because trauma is not only about what happened, it's about how your nervous system adapted. The human brain is designed for survival. When something painful happens, your brain creates strategies to protect you. Those strategies may help you survive in the moment, but years later, they can become obstacles. The child who learned not to trust becomes the adult who struggles with intimacy. The child who constantly criticized becomes the adult who never feels good enough. The child who felt ignored becomes the adult who fears rejection. The wound changes, but the pattern remains. And that's why hidden trauma can affect your life long after the original experience is over. Sign 1. You feel numb more than happy. Let's start with one of the most overlooked trauma symptoms, emotional numbness. Many people expect trauma to create overwhelming emotion, but sometimes trauma creates the opposite. Nothing. You stop feeling deeply, you stop feeling excitement, you stop feeling joy, you stop feeling connected. Life becomes routine. Wake up, work, eat, scroll, sleep, repeat. You function, but you don't feel alive. This happens because emotional numbness is often a survival strategy. When emotional pain becomes overwhelming, brain sometimes reduces emotional intensity. Unfortunately, it does not only reduce painful emotions, it also reduces positive emotion. And suddenly, life feels grey. Not terrible, not wonderful, just empty. Many adults describe this feeling as I'm surviving, but I'm not living. And that's often one of the first hidden signs of unresolved emotional trauma. Sign 2. Small things create big reactions. Have you ever reacted strongly and then wondered why? A delayed text message, a small disagreement, a change in someone's tones, a cancelled plan, and suddenly you feel hurt, rejected, anxious, angry. The emotional reaction feels much larger than the situation. Why? Because the brain is not only reacting to the present moment, it's reacting to the emotional memories. If you have ever experienced rejection before, small signs of rejection can feel enormous. If you have experienced abandonment before, small signs of distance can feel threatening. Your nervous system remembers even when you don't consciously realize it. The trigger is not creating the pain, it's activating pain that already exists. And many people spend years criticizing themselves for being too sensitive when they are actually carrying unresolved emotional wounds. Sign 3. You can't stop overthinking the past. Let's talk about overthinking, not healthy reflection, not learning from mistakes, the endless replaying the mental loops, the conversations that never leave your mind. You think about what you should have said, what you should have done, how things could have gone differently again and again. Many people believe overthinking creates control, but often it creates suffering. Psychologically speaking, overthinking is frequently the brain's attempt to create closure. The problem? Some wounds cannot be healed through thinking. No amount of replaying the memory changes what happened, and yet the brain continues searching because unresolved pain wants resolution. The challenge is learning that healing requires processing emotions, not endlessly reliving them. Sign 4. Fear is making your decisions. This is one of the most powerful trauma signs. Fear disguised as logic. Many people believe they are simply being cautious, practical, but underneath they are afraid. Afraid to trust, to love, to fail, to be rejected, or to be seen. Why? Because their brain learned painful lessons in the past. The problem is that fear does not always protect growth. Sometimes it prevents growth. You avoid opportunities, relationship vulnerability, and risks. And slowly life becomes smaller. Not because you are incapable, but because your nervous system is trying to keep you safe. The tragedy is that many people mistake fear for wisdom, when in reality, fear is often an old wound asking for protection. Sign 5. You become a people pleaser. This trauma response is incredibly common. You struggle to say no, you put everyone else first. You feel guilty for having needs, you worry about disappointing people, and your self-worth becomes tied to approval. Deep down, many people pleasers learned a painful lesson. They learned that love must be earned. They learned that being useful creates safety. They learned that keeping everyone happy reduces conflict. So they become experts at meeting other people's needs, and eventually they forget their own. And years later, they feel exhausted, resentful, and disconnected, not because they care too much, but because they have spent their lives abandoning themselves. Sign 6. You never feel good enough. No achievement feels enough. No success feels complete. No compliment lasts very long. You constantly compare yourself. You constantly push yourself. You constantly feel behind, even when you are doing well. This often develops when someone grows up feeling valued for performance rather than who they are. They learn that worth must be earned. And so adulthood becomes an endless chase. More success, more achievement, more validation. Yet satisfaction never arrives. Because the wound is not about success, it's about worthiness. And no external achievement can permanently solve an internal belief that says, I am not enough. Sign 7. You can't relax even when everything is fine. This final sign surprises many people. You finally have a quiet moment, nothing is wrong, no crisis, no emergencies, no problem. Yet you still feel uneasy. Your mind keeps scanning for danger. Your body remains tense, your thoughts remain active. This is called hypervigilance. A nervous system that learned to expect problems, even when life is peaceful. Many trauma survivors don't feel comfortable with calm, because calm feels unfamiliar. Their brain learned that danger could appear at any moment, so it remains alert, always preparing, watching, and anticipating, and eventually, exhaustion becomes normal. So, what do you do if these signs feel familiar? First, don't panic. Awareness is not a diagnosis, it's information. Second, stop judging yourself. Many trauma responses were once survival strategies they developed for a reason. Third, start becoming curious. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask what happened that taught me this. Fourth, create space for emotional awareness, journaling, therapy, mindfulness, self-reflection, meaningful conversation. Healing begins when emotions are acknowledged rather than avoided. And finally, be patient. The patterns that took years to develop rarely disappear overnight. But every moment of awareness creates the possibility for change. If this video felt personal, that's okay. Many people spend years trying to fix themselves without realizing they are carrying unresolved emotional pain. The goal is not perfection, the goal is understanding. Because when you understand your patterns, you stop being controlled by them. And sometimes, the moment you finally understand yourself is the moment healing truly begins. If you found this video helpful, subscribe to Heart and Mind for more psychology and mental health. Because understanding your mind can change your entire life.